Hello, and welcome to the lore of Braunhaven. Today we're going to be talking about the Solvanus Forest as a whole, and we will touch in on the High Elven capital city of Drzewodolek. So the Solvanus Forest um, sprung into existence when the Fey realm actually touched the Prime Plane, and the planes are made up of some kind of magical substance. Nobody really has a name for it, but they're not. It's not like a planet collision. It is literally a plane of existence, and so there's this magical trait that holds the whole thing together. And these two planes came into contact here, and they kind of bounced, ricocheted off of each other, and when the planes came into contact with when the prime plane and the Fey realm came into contact, there was kind of a stickiness, a tacky situation, and when it bounced and came off, there are these wispy parts of what makes up the planes that kind of rip apart, and this vaporous trail leads between the two. And it could be that someday the Fey realm will move far enough away that all of these uh, wisps will be removed or torn asunder, or maybe not. Maybe it is permanent. But where these wisps connect between the Fey realm and the Prime Plane, you have the opportunity, I suppose, or the curse, that there would be a portal there between the Prime Plane and the Fey realm. And that is what has happened with the Solvanus Forest. The Solvanus Forest itself is actually a part of the Fey realm. It is literally a part of that realm's landscape, and it has been transferred here to the Prime Plane. This has a couple of unique traits, as we touched on with the history of the elves. The Fey realm, there is some question among scholars about the Fey realm. It is usually an assumption by those that are in the know, and there are not many that are in the know. Not very many people in the Prime Plane know or really contemplate the nature of the planes. They know in their heart of hearts, they know that other planes exist. It's usually this knowledge takes the form of funerary rites. They believe that when you die, the soul goes to another plane, and that they are mostly correct with that. That usually does take place, but that that whole situation is another topic, really. Even though Octus does touch on the elves, but they don't really think about too much about things like the Fey realm, or I mean, they know that fairies exist and that they come from the Fey realm, but they don't really contemplate the realm itself. The scholars that do, there is this automatic assumption that the planes of existence are a sphere that floats in the astral sea. This isn't necessarily true for the Fey realm. Nobody knows if it is actually a sphere or if it is a just permanent, flat, ever existing plane that goes on forever. And through the Fey realm, there is something called the World River. Now, if it was a true sphere, it would be unlikely that a river would be able to flow completely around the sphere. But in the Fey realm, because of its magical properties, there are places where water literally flows upstream, or that there are mountain crags that float in the sky hundreds of feet above the surface. It is a very magical place. It is a primordial, ever expanding forest. As far as the eye can see and as far as you will ever travel, it You never reach the end. It just goes on forever, as does the World River, which supplies the entire Fey realm with its fresh water. There's no sea. There is just the World River. So because of that, the magical nature of the Fey realm, where it has touched the Prime Plane and created the Solvanus Forest, it is a very dangerous place because the landscape of the forest constantly shifts and changes. So anybody, with the exception of the elven races and leprechauns that enter into the favor or enter into the Solvanus Forest, rather, um, can get lost. And so, as the referee for the game, and saying that kind of taking you out of the lore and into the meta, the referee would actually roll each day. There is the chance of getting lost is a 3 in 6 chance. So I mean, 50% chance of getting lost. Elves and leprechauns don't have that problem. They can actually lead characters through the forest, but the landscape literally shifts. What was there, a trail that you had been traveling down a day before, is suddenly overgrown and no longer exists. And when this happens, you may think you're going the right direction, but it is actually random. It's a D4. North, east, west, south is the direction that you travel for the next 24 turns, 4 hours, until you realize that you're not going the right way. And then there's a chance, 1 in 10 chance on a D10, that 1d4 characters from the party, or you can choose randomly, will accidentally step through one of these wispy portals and be transported to the Fey realm. That usually is only going to last for about 1d4 turns, so as much as 40 minutes. I mean, you could just round it off and say an hour, where they will be lost in the Fey realm. They may not even realize that they're in the Fey realm, except that the rest of the party's not around them anymore. Then the downside of it is at the end of the 1d4 turns or hour, however the referee wants to do it, they can stumble through another portal and be transported back to the Solvanus Forest, but it won't transport them back to the location that they actually stepped through originally. They'll be up to 1d4 hexes away from wherever it was that they initially stepped through. So this has the potential of separating the party. And you're going to split the party, and suddenly now the forest, because you're going to be, of course, checking for random encounters throughout the forest. This can make the forest a very deadly place. Again, if there's an elf or leprechaun, they can, warn the rest of the party to not get lost, and to maintain direction. This makes having an elf or a leprechaun in your party extremely important. So you have this shifting nature of the Solvanus Forest, but there are some creatures that have made the forest, that aren't elves, for instance, that have made the forest their home. I mean, of course, you have fey creatures such as warp beasts, or for the 5e crowd, displacer beasts. You also have owlbears, your typical mundane creatures, and then you also have, there are rumors and legends that there is one of the rumors that there's a beautiful elven maid that travels through the forest, but she is beautiful to look at, and it is said that she will sometimes come to lost characters. The thing about that is that when that happens, according to the legend, the characters disappear. They're never seen again. So there are dangers of the residents, from the residents that live here. Now on the hex map, each one of these hexes is 6 miles, and I have put in a couple of I guess waypoints so that people know. So from a previous adventure, this is Duke Bartholomew's manor, from the nobleman's manor, and of course the Eastern Tradeway is up here. Um, so that tells you kind of where you are at and the size of the forest. And of course, Drzewodolek is kind of off center here. Um, there is a hill giant encampment here, and of course, and the fabled fairy cat meadow. And this is a drow tower, and this is rumored to be the lair of Naja, a ancient, an old adult green dragon that claims the Solvanus Forest as his hunting grounds. Now he hasn't really exerted much force. The as far as Naja is concerned, the elves um, he attempted to basically raze Drzewodolek to the dirt, and the elves fought him back and punched him in the nose pretty hard. And so he hasn't been seen for a number of years, as he's been in his lair. But he did, he convinced a tribe of hill giants that he was some kind of powerful god, and commanded them to enter the Solvanus Forest from the Grey Hills, which is to the east, not far away. In fact, it's the Grey Hills are fairly close. Um, to come into the Solvanus Forest and to set up shop, and the hill giants did. The hill giants aren't that bright. But yes, they came in. They have set up an encampment, and so far, they've conducted a couple of raids on Drzewodolek and in the surrounding forest. They haven't done too much damage to the capital city as of yet, and of course, the elves are concerned that the hill giants will discover the elves' source of wealth. The elves have a number of silver mines that are on the east fork of the Indian River, and these silver mines are essentially what have made Drzewodolek wealthy. And they have minted Drzewodolek has minted their own coin, the Fey Shell, 1 silver piece. And that coin, there's such abundance of silver that coin has become pretty much the silver piece standard for all of the Glaucian Empire. Rather than mint their own, they just chose to use what was already in circulation. And so the elves are worried that should the hill giants find these mines or locate them, then they're one or two things is going to happen. They're either going to go, the most likely is that they're going to go and tell Naja that, and the hill giants make routine pilgrimages yearly to his little island lair. They're going to go tell Naja about this, and that's going to, of course, being a dragon, that's going to pique his interest for his horde. The other, probably, I guess it's the lesser of the two evils. The other possibility is that they will send word back to other hill giant tribes in the Grey Hills and of the wealth that can be found here, and they're going to come. And so this, of course, could present a problem, because then you would have the forest overrun with hill giants, and nobody in Drzewodolek wants that. And so that can be a dangerous situation. Naja is probably, as far as the elves are concerned, Naja is the most dangerous threat. But again, with the elven politics, the high elves, they they have become very complacent Elves have long, long lives on the Prime Plane, and they don't do anything in a rush. And it has been long enough by this point that now, if somebody brings up to the Elder Council of Drzewodolek that, Najaw is still a threat, he's still out there. We didn't finish the job the first time. The elves are now at this point are like, yeah, but he hasn't done anything, so I think we taught him a lesson, and we can, of course, go on about our lives. It's just not a priority, and this is the situation with Naja is probably the most glaring and bad situation, right next to the division between the High Elves and the Wood Elves, and this is this is this is a problem. Their government is stagnating. There are of course more conservative elements of the Wood Elves, particularly, that want to move back towards the traditional ways of the elves, and they they talk of that they would solve some of these problems in a more timely manner. The High Elves, for their part, they control the city, and they control who can and cannot be on the Council of Elders, and thus far, they have a great amount of nepotism, and they have kept only High Elves in the council, much to the chagrin of the Wood Elves. And so, with no Wood Elves being on the Elder Council, and really the main goal of the Elder Council of the Council of Elders is to maintain their power, and uh, this this only further divides the Elven peoples. Um, the Wood Elves are exceptionally um, disenfranchised compared to the High Elves. They're I mean, it could even go so far as to say that some half elves are even treated better than how the high elves treat the wood elves. So there is this amount of division within the city of Drzewodolek. So that kind of there are now, of course, this map. There are locations that I did not post because if you are running this as part of your campaign, you don't necessarily want your players to see where things are at. This is a hex map; they can find that on their own. So there is a referees map that has all of the locations marked, and you can kind of drop them in where you want, or use them as placed. And this allows for some surprise to come to your players as they trudge their way from hex to hex, hoping to not get lost. Or perhaps they do want to get lost and they just accidentally trip into some of these locations. But um, the the city of Drzewodolek, we will touch base more on next time. It is a large city that is, and again, this is to the detriment of the Wood Elves. It is a rather cosmopolitan city that people may not expect when trudging through the forest and coming to meet the elves. It has a pretty high permanent population, and there is a large transient population that comes and goes from the city as well. And often, a lot of the foreigners that are to be found in the city are usually from ship crews. They do have a vibrant shipping industry from Orentis or Urabashia. You do sometimes see caravans, overland caravans, that make their way in, and they usually employ an elven scout to lead them overland. But most of the time, you're going to see these ships that are docked, and they come right up the east fork of the Inian River and make their way to the port at Drzewodolek. So we will discuss. I will have a map up of Drzewodolek, and we will go over the different areas next time. Thank you for watching.